The other day, a friend of mine asked this question, which I thought suddenly made me realize, this is a really good question that has an interesting answer, but not a lot of people actually know kind of how it works. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about how YouTube's recommendation works when it comes to you browsing the platform, the videos that they recommend, and how it has pros and cons in terms of the way that the mechanism is. Welcome to my channel. This is my YouTube for Beginners series where I talk about common questions that people have when it comes to starting on YouTube for the first time, or even just YouTube knowledge in general. YouTube recommendations has been around for a pretty long time, and they have really fine-tuned the algorithm from in the beginning where it didn't even need an algorithm because there was so little content on the platform, to now the algorithm needs to do so much work in order to make sure that people have the best experience possible when it comes to making content on the platform. Let's get started in terms of how YouTube recommends content. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is the idea of a feedback loop. And this is actually pretty much the baseline when it comes to all social media platforms online nowadays. Imagine that you're a new user on YouTube who has no track record in terms of what you watch on the platform. Your first video that you watch might be just an interesting video that appears on the YouTube homepage, or it might be something that you're searching in order to find a solution for. Let's say how to tie a tie, which is one of the most popular videos on YouTube. After that happens, what YouTube does is that it starts tracking all of your behavior when it comes to the content that you watch. If you have just discovered YouTube and you start watching the content, YouTube is going to start feeding more of that content back to you. The reason why I say it is a feedback loop is because of the fact that essentially you are watching a video, that information is sent to YouTube, and then as a result, YouTube is going to recommend another video for you to watch, and this continues and continues until etc. Therefore, the feedback loop is the most basic process in terms of how YouTube recommends the content. Now, I'm going to talk more about the qualities that YouTube looks at in terms of why videos appear in certain places. Let's start off with the demographics because that's the easiest. If you have an account on YouTube, which most people do because of Gmail and how it is associated with YouTube, if you have an account, they have enough data in terms of who you are, where you live, what your age is, maybe even what your job is and what your salary is, and as a result, they're going to accumulate that data, and then they're going to recommend content based off of existing data from that. What's kind of interesting is that YouTube always works off of existing information when it comes to algorithm, because the algorithm is really dictated by its viewers. I remember back then when, and even now, there's a lot of people who have no idea how the algorithm is, or they try to sound like an expert of it, but the truth is that the algorithm is just a property of a feedback loop, which means that yes, the algorithm changes because people's habits change. It's what people watch that determines what the algorithm is. So going back to the recommendations, they're going to be looking at those metrics, including where you're located, what you already watched, and also as a result your income, whether you're male, female, etc. All those things are going to play a part in terms of what they recommend, and that is how they start creating the feedback loop. One interesting way that you can test the YouTube algorithm is creating, well, not the easiest way is creating a new account, but even if you just use incognito mode or use a VPN and start YouTube from scratch, you click on any one of those random videos, you can see right away in the suggested, the algorithm has already worked to make sure that all the content that is recommended is catered based off of that video that is being watched. People watch a lot of content on YouTube. There's a stat for some of the people who watch the most, which are the younger audiences. We're looking at around 2 hours every day when it comes to watching on YouTube. But depending on what you do, YouTube is also going to track that when it comes to recommendations. Whether you like a video, whether you leave a comment, that is going to go back into the feedback loop so that YouTube is going to put the right video that is recommended for you in the next time that you visit the platform. One specific aspect that I can also expand on is just the variety of specificity that YouTube gives when it comes to content. Let's say we use tech videos as a good example. Maybe your first video was watching an iPhone review. Now, there's a range when it comes to how specifically correlated the suggestions are going to be. They might suggest another iPhone review by another reviewer, or they might suggest an iPhone unboxing. Those are examples of very specific content that's directly related to what you already watched. The other thing, though, when we look at more the opposite of that, which is more generalized, that is when the content that they might recommend is, let's say, an iPad or even a Samsung device review. That is when it starts becoming more generalized. And then we go to the bottom, which is the most general. It might just start recommending you TV, computer. You see, like, we're going out from the specific topic, which is iPhone, and then we're going further and further out, and eventually we're just going to consumer electronics. And it might even move to Amazon Echo, which is a consumer electronic. And from there, that's when the web might expand even more. And it might go into interior design or home design, and that will go into lifestyle. So you can see there's a lot of range when it comes to what they recommend. Ideally, of course, they're going to test that entire range, and they're going to make sure to see which ones has captured you and made you want to click and watch more of the content. I would say a few years ago, they were extremely on point when it comes to recommendations, because I think everybody has been on that rabbit hole down YouTube where they just keep watching one video after the other. And all this does is it feeds that data to YouTube, where they work off of associating the topics that you already like and then putting those recommended into more. Therefore, as long as you have an account, and even if you don't, if you're just using YouTube as a guest account without any real account, if you are still using it from that computer, YouTube is eventually going to start recommending content to you. We can also think about the fact that the more that they recommend, the more of that topic you're going to be exposed to, and it's this feedback loop is just going to become more and more until you almost reach a climax in terms of the topic that you do. And that's why when YouTube senses that, they start bridging over to other topics. My friend, she said that she watches all recipe videos on YouTube, and based off of how YouTube works, it might continue to recommend Binging with Babish, food wishes. It might continue to recommend those chef videos. But if they see that, oh, well, we're recommending it to you, but you're not watching it as much anymore, they might jump ship, and they might start splicing in maybe Tupperware or kitchenware reviews. They might start splicing in those topics or other topics that they find are positively correlated with viewership when it comes to the demographic that you're in. Alright, let's talk about the pros and the cons when it comes to the YouTube recommendations and the YouTube algorithm overall. The pros of this is that when you utilize the algorithm in the way that they intend, where you just watch the suggested, you watch what they feed you, you are giving them more information, and as a result, you will not have to look for quality content. YouTube is going to provide the content that they suspect that you like. And if you don't like it, then you can dislike it or you just don't click on it, and YouTube will recommend something else. I always say this to my clients, is that at the end of the day, YouTube is looking for a balance between the creators, the advertisers, and the consumer. In this case, we don't need to talk about the advertisers because we're not talking about that. But they want to make sure that the consumers are happy so they stay on the platform, and they also want to make sure that the creators are happy so that they would be able to continue making content and doing what they love to do. So the algorithm works in a way where they want you to be happy and they want you to consume the video that are being suggested so that you'll continue to watch more of their content. Now let's talk about the cons of YouTube recommendations and why I suggest a strategy to get out of this. The biggest thing when it comes to the YouTube algorithm and having the tailored search and the tailored videos is the fact that eventually YouTube's algorithm and the recommendations are going to end up pigeonholing you on the platform. They are going to be recommending what you already like to consume, and they know that, well, recommending these videos, which are already in the genre that you are in, will lead to more watch time. It will lead to you staying on the platform more. So as a result, they're going to continue to recommend similar topics. I know in my example, they might jump to one to the other or jump to another subcategory, but I think it's safe to say that overall, the topics are still the ones that are recommended a lot. Therefore, one of the disadvantages of this is if you become pigeonholed by YouTube, as a consumer, you are kind of missing out on different types of videos and missing out on different genres. And you are just continuing to go down that route. And that's also why it can be dangerous, because if you are walking an extreme path or something, that might lead to you continuing down that path, and the feedback loop continues, and that's why it can also be kind of like an echo chamber, which might not be good. If you're a content creator, this is especially important because you need to have perspective when it comes to the YouTube platform. You need to make sure that you are having the entire scope, and you're not just watching what is being recommended to you, because yeah, that is good content, but it might not be the entire picture in terms of what's happening on YouTube right now. That's something that me as a consultant for my clients, I want to make sure that I am providing a holistic perspective of the platform. You know me, I'm going to provide a solution and talk about how you can improve this, just because it's just in my nature in the videos to educate. The solution to this is you want to have a balance of both, meaning that occasionally I would always suggest you to log in from a blank account, from a guest account, and just see what's on YouTube, see what's trending, see what's going on out there. There are a lot of genres that you probably have never heard of, and it doesn't hurt for you to just check it out. It doesn't hurt for you to see what's going on, what's trending, and just have a better perspective of kind of what is working on YouTube right now. From a consumer perspective, you know, like watching YouTube is just for fun. So maybe you don't necessarily have to like force yourself to do that. You know, you might be happy just eating up all the videos that YouTube gives you. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if you want to expand your horizons, definitely go and to incognito mode, open up a new private window and just browse YouTube and see what's out there, what's currently trending, and see maybe there's something interesting that you wouldn't have seen if you were just on your own account. Of course, from a content creator perspective, definitely 100% you should be browsing YouTube incognito occasionally just to keep up to date when it comes to your content. One of the biggest paradoxes that I've found before is the fact that there are people who are content creators on the platform, and especially in this niche, and they're talking about how to grow on YouTube, but they don't even watch YouTube content. Now, if you're not a consumer of the product, then how can you suggest better strategies to make the product better? Therefore, and sometimes I don't have time to do it, but I try to, is you want to see what's out there from an incognito perspective, where there are no recommendations, no YouTube algorithm that's telling you and feeding you content, and you are just browsing and seeing what is currently trending. I know this was a long video today, but hopefully you enjoyed this video and this gave you better insight in terms of how YouTube recommendations work, linking it to the YouTube algorithm, and also what you can do if you want to better experience as a consumer or as a content creator. Remember to leave your comments below in terms of what you thought about the topic today. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye-bye.